Hi there, this is Helen Tarrant again from Helen. Here with our whole team. Wow, it's massive. Welcome to another episode of Commercial Property Roadshow. You're here with Helen Tarrant, and today I'm actually going to talk about office spaces, vetting office space tenant, and what you should be looking for in office spaces. Now, if you're looking for buying warehouses or retail, then I've got my other previous videos are on it, so go and check those out in the list. Talking about the value of your warehouse property and also retail properties. Now, I want to also cover off this office space properties and how you should vet them, how you should look at tenants, and how you should look at returns, and how you should predict things in the future, even though we don't have a crystal ball, right? So let's look at offices. Now, I know there's a bit of a bad rap in the media, people talking about, people not going back to offices, people talking about in the future that, that it's not going to be as versatile. People talk about, there's not that same demand. And look, really, honestly, there's certain businesses that have to be in an office space. So you've got to think about that. So what are these businesses? Firstly, there are businesses that are going to be type of government tenants, medical, allied health, professional tenants like your solicitors, accountants, financial planners. They need to be in an office space. Things like, potentially a mortgage broker may need co-sharing space, right? But they may not need an office on their own. You might find that people who are just startups, who, might be a surveyor, architects, or anybody who is in maybe safety and compliance areas, they're really not going to be in that area where they might need an office all the time, so they might go to a co-working space and a hub, right? But the reason that co-working space and hubs really do take off is because people still need workspaces. Even though they might not need a lot of workspace, they still need somewhere to go to, somewhere to park their stuff, somewhere to look professional, somewhere to meet people, and somewhere to actually work. And for some people, great, they've got the luxury of working at home, they've got a home office, not disturbed by the kids, not people running around, and they can do calls. For a lot of people, that's not a luxury. Some people just want to get out of the house, socialize with other people, and also be able to be with their work colleagues so they can get that interaction, but also work and career migration up the ladder, right? And it's very, very hard when you're stuck at home looking at Zoom to go up the ladder. So these are the reasons that will bring people back to the office. And of course, we're going to have that flexibility of work where people are working from home or they're working remotely and they're only coming back to the office 2 or 3 days a week. And then we're going to see that rotation. But that doesn't mean that office space is totally out, that nobody's going to use them, because I believe in 4 to 5 years' time, people are going to forget we had the pandemic. People are going to forget that we had a space when things were vacant. We had a downturn, and that office is going to come back in demand. It's probably going to come back in strong force because we've had the rise of warehouses. We're going to have the rise of retail, and then following that on, we're going to have the rise of office spaces. It all comes in cycles. It's just not now and not immediate, and most people can't see it. And also, when we look at things, we do tend to have, short memories when it comes to things. If we look at things like the Great Depression, the GFC, the Asia crisis, all those things now, we're seeing the market boom as it was before. There is short memories of it. So office spaces will come back. But when you buy office spaces now, it's a key turning point, which is why I'm making this video. I'm making this video because it's a key turning point if you're thinking of investing in office spaces. Number one, if you're investing in office space, one of the things you've got to look at is, firstly, versatility of the space, right? If it's 400 square meters, 200 square meters, 100 square meters, can you make one space into two? Can you co-share with someone if you need to? Or can you invest in it and later on, split up internally to make maybe even co-sharing space yourself, just like Airbnb, but for office space, right? And can you do that without causing too many issues with strata and also financially for yourself as well? Because the more versatile the space is, you're going to be more likely to find tenants, right? Because right now the sweet spot is 80 to 120 square meters. Anything bigger, you need to bring it down to size. Number two thing to look at is the quality of the building. The quality of the building for someone who wants an office space, which is your tenant, is really important. So what we're looking for is lifts that go up and down, that works, that doesn't break. Lifts that are not too old and creaky and fast is really important, especially when you're in a high rise, when you've got 20, 30, 50 square floors, right? If you're in one of Sydney's high rises in Melbourne, people don't want to wait 10 minutes to get upstairs from lunch. They're going to wait 2 minutes, right? So that's also important. And then, of course, your lobby area, whether there's a concierge, whether you have things like a gym, a shower where you can ride to work, all those things start to become important as we look at more lifestyle balances in work, especially in areas where you're out of Sydney and Melbourne. You see areas in Perth, areas in Adelaide, areas in Brisbane, where they're already in the city, making allows for people to be able to cycle to work, be able to shower there, park their bikes in there, and then go up to work, right? That's not happening right now in Sydney and Melbourne, but you will see that in more office spaces that are new and built and refurbished, because it's going to be the demand of what people are doing now, is to be more energy efficient and to be more economical in their travels, right? So that's where we're going to see that difference. Now, also things like, then we come to another important point, is how well is the strata run, right? Because if you are going to be an investor, most of the time when you're investing in Sydney or city CBDs, whether it's Sydney, Melbourne or Brisbane, you're going to find that the strata is pretty high. It's just a standard strata is pretty high, right? So easily a quarter can be, up to anywhere from $2,000, $3,000 to $5,000 a quarter. So you could be up for 20 grand in just strata fees. But the most important thing to remember about that is, what is that used for? Is it used for replacing the lift? Is it used for replacing the roof? Is it used for, capital works? Is it well maintained? Because a well maintained building will attract the higher level of tenants, right? And when you attract higher level of tenants, you can keep your rent per square meter high, which then continues on with keeping the value of the property, and then keeping the value of the property, and then moving forward to be able to get to be able to move forward and get higher rents, and then the value of the property continues to grow. And then finally, we want to look at we're number 4 now. We want to look at the location. So location is important in that, where is it? Like, is it on York Street in Sydney? Is it in the Fortitude Valley, or is it in Spring Hill, or is it in CBD Brisbane, or are we talking Melbourne CBD, or is it we talking Docklands, right? They're very significantly different, right? So where the location is going to be different, and you're going to attract a different type of hub or type of tenants, like a tenant hub. So it's important to look at the location in comparison to everything else. So your location, is it, when you come downstairs, can you access eateries, right? Is it somewhere for your clients to park, even if there's a local parking station, right? Or is there buses, trains? Is that accessible for your workers? Because they don't really need they don't need to park in the city, but they do need transportation to get there, right? So you need to think about those things, because you're tracking staff, but also your customers are going to if you're going to have an office in the city, they're going to come and visit you, right? What's the point of having an office if no one's going to visit you, right? And if you're doing B2C, then someone's going to visit you, so you've got to make sure that it's easy for them to find you, right? So location is really important. And then finally, and this can interplay depending on, and this is a key thing we look at when we're doing the assessment of a DD of an office space. Finally, we'll look at number 6 or number 5. So the 5 or 5 is we look at the tenant hub itself. Is the tenant hub in the actual building going to maintain the rent levels, or is it going to diminish, right? So for example, you have professional tenants. So you have solicitors, accountants, financial planners, you have people who are in trade, kind of doing trade kind of businesses there, and you might have psychologists, allied health in the building. These people are going to maintain rent per square meter, because they charge at a higher level, so they can pay rent at a higher level. They're going to maintain the rent per square meter. They want to have a looked after building, so they're going to pay the outgoings, and they're going to make sure that their tenants are wowed by where they are, right? So they will help to keep the rent per square meter high. They will help to keep the vacancy low. They will also make re-tenancy much easier. So tenant hub is really, really important. So look into that and understand that, right? So these are the 5 things to look for when you're vetting a office space. Now, in terms of long-term value, in terms of office space, what you need to look at is, key to this is that, where are you going to be built out, firstly, because mostly office spaces won't be. They're not affected by greenfields as much. But secondly, it is really about the rate per square meter. So you've got to assess the rate per square meter your tenant is paying now. Is that sustainable rate per square meter in the future, right? And if it is, then it's definitely is something to invest in. If it's not sustainable for rent in the future, or there's not likelihood that that rent is going to grow, because what happens with office spaces is that the rent tend to say, let's say it's $500 a square meter to $700 a square meter. It's going to stay that way for quite a few years until the market comes to a point where almost all the vacancy are gone, and then the next thing it will jump. You'll see it will jump. It won't go from 500 to 700 square meter when it start out to maybe $800 a square meter. It won't. It will go to $900. So $500 will disappear. You'll just go to $900 a square meter. So what you see is a 20 to 30% automatic jump, because it's been stagnant for anywhere from 1 to 3 or 4 years in that space, and then you'll see it jump, and all of a sudden the value of your property doubles, right? Because the rent's gone up and the yield has come down, and as a result your property doubles. But it could be stagnant for anywhere from 1 to 4 to 5 years, and then all of a sudden you see that immediate change. And that's happened in Sydney CBD, Melbourne CBD, happened in Brisbane CBD, or before COVID at different times at different levels, right? So right now, this is why I think it's a key time for you to invest into office space, because this is where rents are stagnant at the moment, values are low, and people don't appreciate it as an asset class. When people don't appreciate something like this as an asset class, it's a good time to invest in it. But there are certain office spaces that you need to avoid, certain areas, and this is why you need to contact us if you want to find out more about investing into office spaces. If you even think that is a good idea, what is the appropriate yield for different areas, different cities, different type of tenants, and also location as well for office spaces, and what is the right office space to invest in versus the wrong office space, and in terms of layout, and in terms of what to look for in terms of their strata, because often strata can be 300 or 400 pages when you're looking at big high rises as well. So all that in mind, if you found this helpful, leave me a comment below, click the bell, subscribe, and let me know what else I can cover in my YouTube channels and YouTube topics. But if you are looking for someone to truly help you build a cash flow portfolio through commercial property, to help you grow, then partner up with us, Helen Tarrant, Unicorn Commercial Property, and let me help you. So go to helentarrant.com and drop me a line, and let's jump on a strategy call. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.